Friday, everyone. Welcome to the Tommy John Studio in New York City. I am your host, Charlie DiSturco, and this is Green Dot Daily, coming to you live every weekday at 3 p.m. Eastern on the Action YouTube channel and the Action app. The underdogs are barking in the NFL. Brandon Aubrey's missed field goal late cost Cowboy backers as the Giants continued an early season trend that has been extremely profitable. We'll break that down and how to attack this weekend slate with Chris Raybon and Stuckey in just a second. Plus, we'll see if either of them will come to their senses and join me on Sharp Tank. I'm 4-0, just saying. But we don't have NFL tonight. We do have Friday Night Lights over in the CFB world. Mike Calabrese hops on to break down this two-game slate with a bet in both if you want to get in on the action. Once again, it's a football-only show over here on GDD. So let's start in the NFL, and injuries have been the name of the game for Sunday's bout between the Patriots and 49ers. We've seen the Christian McCaffrey news with him heading to Germany for an Achilles specialist, but Deebo Samuel and George Kittle remain questionable this weekend. Both return to practice for what it's worth. New England also nursing plenty of injuries as well, most notably their offensive line dealing with a complete shakeup. We saw against the Jets, they struggled mightily to limit the pressure on Jacoby Brissett. Eventually, Drake May late in the game as well, as we welcome in Stuckey and Chris Raybon to talk more about this game and the rest of Week 4. Stuckey, I'll kick it to you first. Obviously this point spread has jumped above double digits. Should San Francisco, despite not having McCaffrey, despite possibly not having Deebo, Kittle possibly returning despite being banged up, all these injuries going on, should they be favored by this much, I should say?
Yeah, I think so. Look, you got to go back to the Rams game. They were in position to blow out the Rams, and they outplayed them significantly. Even the Rams in a come from behind game state, they were still outgained by, I think, 100-plus yards, over a yard per play. And the 49ers should probably be healthier than they were last week. The Patriots are bad. That offensive line's a mess. The Jets' defensive line, if you look at their metrics, one of the worst in the NFL this year, and they couldn't get anything going with that offensive line against the Jets. They even have injuries in the secondary as well, which are worth monitoring. So, you get a desperate 1-2 49ers team here. One thing I don't like about it is Shanahan tends to get conservative at times. So, I'm not really into laying double digits in the NFL, especially with the 49ers, but I do think this price is about right.
Yeah, it felt like the Jets got anything they wanted against the Patriots, and it feels like the 49ers should be able to have a similar thing going. Chris, what do you think about this situation?
I would lean that the line shouldn't be quite this high. I just think it's really early in the season, and one of the reasons you have been seeing these bigger dogs cover is because early in the season, there's just less certainty. Whatever your power ratings or however you're kind of setting these lines from last year, you have to regress those to the mean, coming into this year and then start adjusting them. And we've only had 3 weeks. And now you're talking about a Niner team where we really just don't know exactly how healthy these guys are. We still haven't gotten the final injury report. We also have the Patriots on long rest. So we could see some changes schematically, even from their first few games. So I think, yes, the 49ers should bounce back and win the game, but we also have seen scoring down. That's another reason I should point out. Mm-hmm. So only about 42.2 points per game on average. Even last year, it was more like 43.6. So the fewer points, the harder it is for the winner to separate, scoring margin wise. So for all those reasons, I would lean that it probably shouldn't be quite this high, especially with all the uncertainty just a few weeks into the season.
Right. You mentioned the lower scoring. I think that's also what's kind of dealt and led to this trend of underdogs really covering and covering at a very high rate. And you look at underdogs of 5.5 points or more thus far after last night's game against the Giants, up to 15-2 against the spread. A lot of those dogs also winning outright. Obviously, the Giants did not. The New England Patriots fall in this category. So do the Broncos against the Jets, plus 7.5. The Jaguars right around 6.5 against the Houston Texans. And then the Chargers about a touchdown underdog against the Kansas City Chiefs. So I ask you guys, Raybon, I'll kick it back to you right away first. What team in of those 4 that I mentioned has the opportunity to cover here? Or which one would you most likely expect to, that is?
I think it's the Chargers. I know Stuck disagrees, so I'll let him talk about that. But for me, the Chargers have the best defense out of that group, and so they could keep the scoring down, right? And maybe you could say, I guess you could say the Broncos Jets game could be low scoring, but we saw how Bo Nix, that team looked totally different last week. So I got to go Chargers. We know also that the Chiefs, they just don't seem to cover when they're favorites of more than a field goal. It's just like clockwork. So Chargers, all these injuries, right? No one expects them to do anything, but it's a divisional game. Chiefs are on the road. So I go Chargers. It's for me.
Stuckey, I'll kick it right to you. Obviously, you can give out your underdog as well that you think will cover, but also among this Chargers-Chiefs game, I mean, it's interesting. Herbert progressing. We don't know how healthy he is. Derwin James suspended as well. What are your thoughts on that one, and then the underdog in particular that you think can cover?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say what to make of that Chargers-Chiefs game because we don't know the status of a lot of players. I mean, if you don't have Justin Herbert, both of your starting tackles, and a couple of key defenders, makes it tough. It's a big drop off from Herbert to your backup quarterback in LA. So you want to talk about uncertainty and injuries with the 49ers. The Chargers are the extreme case this week. So I can't really speak to that game because I don't know if Herbert's going to play or not. Mm-hmm. He says he wants to play, and I think that he does want to, and it is a big divisional game, but they have a bye next week. And I think they rushed him back last week, and you're probably better off getting a couple weeks of rest. So I think it would make sense just from a gamesmanship perspective to not let it be known who your starting quarterback's going to be. But I would lean that they don't play him. I think that's the smart move. You're an underdog regardless, but we'll see. I genuinely have no idea if he's going to play or not. So I don't know what to do with that game. But speaking of another underdog against a team that hasn't covered or fared well as a favorite, and I know who the quarterback's going to be, it's the Jaguars. So I think the Jaguars of that group have the best chance to cover in this range. And, I do really need 7 here, 7 minus 120. But look, they were awful on Monday night. It is a short week, but it's a divisional game. Home field advantage isn't as big in these spots. And there's a lot of familiarity, which helps on a short week. The Jags have in the past started slow and turned it around. I think they went to the divisional round after starting 1 or 2 and 6 a couple years ago. And look, they should have beat the Dolphins. They actually outplayed the Browns on a down-to-down basis in week 2, and they were bad in week 3. This look-ahead line, which isn't the most, it's not gospel, was around 4-ish. Yes, you have to downgrade the Texans. Excuse me, you have to downgrade the Jags for getting blown out against Buffalo. But remember, they were somehow, for some reason, playing man-to-man down 3 corners. They lost a corner in the first play of the game. It was a bad matchup. Are we not downgrading the Texans? The Texans also got blown out, by the way, as favorites on the road. The Jaguars were expected to lose in Buffalo. Both teams got their doors blown off last week. Texans have been awful as favorites historically under Stroud. It's a lot of it has to do with their coaching staff, and this Texans team just isn't right now. On either side of the ball, they lead the league in punts caused by negative plays on drives. So it's just off right now, the timing. So this is a desperate Jags team in a divisional game, a lot of familiarity. Road divisional dogs usually bark in this range. So and teams off 35+ point losses. You're talking over 70% against the spread historically. So I think it's the Jags of this bunch.
Right. And I talked to Chris on Wednesday about this. I totally agree with you on this is a garbage dive with the Jaguars, but it's something that you have to do. Unfortunately, it's not going to be my Sharp Tank pick. But before we get that, we do have to look back previously on Sharp Tank. Samaje Perine. Over rushing and receiving yards. This line's already been on the move, so we got to buy now. Sharps over 36.5. So I know this isn't sexy, but winning isn't always sexy. And listen, Sharps, I've had 3 in a row. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling confident. Chris, we got the deal, brother. We ended up doing it last week with Elijah Moore. So, Sharps, what do you say? Do we have a deal with Samaje Perine?
I'm already invested in Atlanta plus 3.5. I'm okay with that with that investment. And last week you said, hopefully I get off to a 3-0 start. And then you added I'm immune to regression. For those reasons, I'm out.
Chris, what do you say? Samaje Perine, we have a deal?
We don't. I would rather you presented me with the Carson Steele receiving unders, but with Perine, just because I think they really want to use him as a pass blocker, for that reason, I'm out.
Hello, Sharps. I am Charlie DiSturco, looking for a 1-unit investment on another prop. Stuck. Listen, I couldn't get to a spread or a total here because if it ain't broke, why fix it? I am undefeated so far. 4-0 on my props. We just got Samaje Perine's rushing and receiving over on Sunday night, so I decided, you know what? You got the old bull. Well, how about you get the young calf? Jackson Smith-Njigba over 47.5 receiving yards on Monday Night Football. Another primetime sweat for both of you to join me on. Listen, guys, I think this is like buying Apple stock before it was a thing. You could buy JSN at an undervalued price right now. He's the real wide receiver 2, if not maybe even getting wide receiver 1 territory in this offense. Broke out against New England. 117 yards, had 39 against Miami last week, but they were up 24-3, 17-3 after the first quarter. They were giving Kenny McIntosh the damn ball. I mean, the game was over by the second quarter, and then there was no quarterback for Miami. We had to, it was pretty bad with Boyle. But now we get a game in a dome. Stuck, I know you love domes. I know you love backing Jared Goff in domes. Well, we got Geno Smith in a dome against the Detroit Lions, a team that ranks outside the top 20 in DVOA to the slot. In fact, they're actually dead last in points per game allowed to the slot position per Razzball, and that's exactly where JSN lines up. 85% of the time, up 16% from last season. When I look at this matchup, I just feel like this is the perfect investment for you. Stuck. Listen, I know you say it's not a passion project for you. I know it hasn't been going too well with the Titans and Will Levis, so how about you hop off that train, you hop aboard the Charlie DiSturco Express, you ride with me. Chris, you already did once with a wide receiver prop and it hit. You should come ride with me as well, Sharps. So what do you say? Do you ride with me and the young calf, Jackson Smith-Njigba?
I will say, look, I already have an investment on the Seahawks, so I will be rooting for you. And again,
okay.
So this is not a passion project of mine. Player props in the NFL, not something I dabble in. And I already have an investment, and I don't have any investment funds left after backing the Titans over the first 3 weeks. So I'm out of cash. Plus, I like to invest. If I did have any cash, I would invest in someone that cared a little bit more about their appearance and had a little better hair game today. So for those reasons,
how about that?
I'm out.
How about that? Bang! Glasses. That's another addition to the wardrobe I can do. I could do more, Stuck. Listen, I'll come next week with a bigger and better, maybe a bald head. We'll see. But listen, you said I
gotta have a good weekend first. I don't have any money left, so
fine. I need to make sure you have a good weekend, and then I'll come back maybe with a suit or something else. But listen, Stuck, you mentioned passion project, player props or not, but it's like apple pie. You got to try it at least once. That's what they say, or something like that. My grandma says that. So you have to try it. You come over. You can ride with me and actually see what it feels like. It's exhilarating to watch an over cash. I know, Raybon, you're usually an unders guy. We did cash with Elijah Moore over. This feels a little too low to me. What do you think, my friend?
Yeah, I'll invest with you, Charlie. I like this spot for the Seahawks. Geno Smith has gone to Detroit twice. He's thrown for over 300 both times. They've scored 37 or more points both times. And Detroit, they've been good against tight ends. They've been good against backs. And they've been giving up a ton of production to wide receivers, which is not surprising when you look at their defense. I think still a work in progress on the outside. So the only thing, you were pushing it when you said JSN was the number one, because DK Metcalf is balling right now. So you gotta chill. All right. I do think he's overtaking Tyler Lockett. He is getting more snaps. But yeah, I agree. I think this is a good day for all of the Seahawk wide receivers.
Listen, I have to sell. I have to push out a little bit of propaganda on my end to get you guys, excited. Because, listen, Jackson Smith-Njigba, it's a sexy prop. Like, this is a good prop that we can get behind. Chris, I knew that I liked you a little bit more than Stuckey. I mean, listen, we did it once before with Elijah Moore. I think we could do it again with JSN. The only request I have is that if this prop cash is on Monday night, can you text me back
I got you.
All right. So there we have it. Stuckey, maybe next week you can come invest with me. Maybe I'll have a hairdo change, a wardrobe change, something like that. I tried to work on my hair, but there's not enough producers in the studio to help me with my makeup and stuff like that. But we can't let you guys go without a best bet for the weekend. Chris, you came on Wednesday. You talked about the Colts. Just give me a quick rundown on why you like Indianapolis again.
Yeah, this Pittsburgh team 3-0, riding high, going on the road where Justin Fields is a favorite, but Tomlin's just 10-23 against the spread, 30% as a road favorite against a team with a losing record. I think this is the top of the market for Pittsburgh, so give me the Colts.
Yeah, it definitely feels like a spot to back the Colts. So you get the rah-rah underdog Tomlin spot. Well, this is him as a favorite, so a great spot. And then Stuckey, round us out. No more Tennessee Titans or Carolina Panthers, baby. We're going to prime time with the Bills and Ravens.
Yeah, we're going primetime Monday night with Will Levis. No, I'm kidding. Giving out Will Levis three times, 0 for 3. So I got to go back to my roots and bet. I'm betting the Ravens here. I like them in this spot. Anything under 3 is fine. First of all, it's a great spot. The Bills are coming off a short week. Ravens 1-2, pretty desperate. You get Lamar at home under a field goal. Or as an underdog, historically, he's been just like Mahomes, 23-7 against the spread. Also, for what it's worth, teams that are 3-0 straight up that are dogs in week 4, historically have only hit at about 30% against the spread. There's tons of trends that I could give you for backing the Ravens, but I also just like the matchup. And if you look, the Bills, they're 3-0. They've been impressive. Josh Allen's been awesome playing within the structure of that offense, but they beat the Cardinals, the Dolphins, and the Jaguars. Just 3 teams that are a mess right now with one combined win, not against each other, that came against the Rams practice squad. So those teams have not been impressive. Those teams also aren't built to take advantage of where this Bills team is vulnerable, and that's over the middle of the field. That's their run defense, their linebackers, their nickel that's out. Like, they are banged up. They're down to backup linebackers. One's a special teams player. One's a second-year player out of Tulane. They're all pro nickels out. This team is vulnerable. Their safeties aren't any good. Who can attack that? Well, this rushing attack of the Ravens with their tight ends, they're built to attack this Bills offense. On the defensive side, I really love what I saw from the Ravens defense last week. Zach Orr, I was worried about, like, will he be adaptable? Well, last week he was. He went heavy dime personnel, which I think the Ravens need to do. You got a Darius Washington in there who was amazing going up against CeeDee Lamb in the slot. That's not an easy task. He's going to be big because he's smaller, shifty. He can match up with Shakir. And the Ravens with 6 defensive backs on the field, you get Kyle Hamilton playing that dime. You can do a lot of things with him. The linebackers were an issue in coverage in the first couple weeks, so you get an extra defensive back on the field. You're going to play more zone, which you need to do against Josh Allen. And now you have 6 defensive backs who can kind of react, and then, come up and try and tackle Josh Allen. Yeah, linebackers just aren't going to stick with him. So I like the adjustments that I saw from Moore. It showed that he's adaptable. Mm-hmm. The Ravens have blown 2 leads, but they dominated the Cowboys from start to finish. A lot of it was penalties. They didn't recover an onside kick. I mean, that happens like 5% of the time. The defense had to come right back on the field, gave up a touchdown. The Raiders was penalties and special teams again. So I don't think their defense has as many issues as it should. And this team could be 3-0 with wins at Kansas City and at Dallas, and this line would not be under 3. So I think this is a really good spot for Baltimore. They match up well defensively with what they do against Josh Allen. Josh Allen's going to put up a fight here, but I think the Bills are a bit overvalued. You're hearing all the love right now. It's usually a signal to fade, and this is a great, historically, just a smash hardball spot at home in prime time against an undefeated team. So I'm a bit worried about Tucker. Hopefully he doesn't have to hit many field goals because Father Time is undefeated, but I think the Ravens should be 3-point favorites here. It's a good spot. It's a good matchup, and they can really take advantage of this Bills defense, which is really banged up. You got 2 really good zone corners. And by the way, Lamar against the zone, they're going to play 2 deep, try to take away explosive plays. Lamar's at his best when he's playing against zone and when he's playing against two high safeties. So, there's a lot of things to like here about this matchup. So give me the Ravens on Sunday night.
Definitely feels like a great spot to fade the Bills. Josh Allen, the new MVP favorite. Everyone's talking about him. It's not a Friday without Chris Raybon and Stuckey saying to bet against the 2 of the 5 undefeated teams in the NFL, but that's what we have to do here. That you got to do the ugly. So Chris Raybon, Stuckey, appreciate you both hopping on. And Chris, let's cash this JSN prop, huh?
Let's do it.
Another week, another glimpse at perfection here at Action Network. After Sean Kerner's 16-0 run, our very own Chris Raybon picked up the baton with a 7-0 record betting NFL Week 3. To give everyone a piece of the action, we're offering new Action Pro subscribers $20 off the price of an annual subscription. All you have to do is go to actionnetwork.com/pro and use the promo code PERFECT, and you get instant notifications anytime Chris Raybon makes a pick. You'll also get access to our projections for NFL spreads, totals, and props for every game, every single week. Once again, that's actionnetwork.com/pro with the promo code PERFECT.
Yeah, it's the Andy Dalton revenge game, right? It's what we're all excited about seeing this week. And I think you talked a bit ago about the free points on the line. I think we're getting some free points on this line too. So I'm going to take the Bengals on the road, the 0-3 Bengals minus the 4. This game was minus 7.5 on Sunday morning. So we're really moving this a field goal now because we saw Andy Dalton getting the throwback machine. If you zoom out, look at this year compared to last year. Again, DVOA only so much this time of year, but it's kind of crazy. Last year, for the season, Panthers DVOA on offense, 31st, 25th on defense. So far this year, 31st on offense, 21st on defense. Same old Panthers. Bengals last year, 11th on offense, 23rd by defense. Guess what? The defense still isn't very good. 24th. The offense is 5th. They're 0-3, but a top 5 offense so far. And if you think of what you saw Monday night, there was plenty of Bengals scoring points also. The offense did their job. They just need to make some defensive stops. So in this matchup, Bengals offense, I think, is going to score. The Panthers defense is not good. No Derek Brown. That alone, I think, is enough mismatch. But there's a chance the Andy Dalton thing was kind of like a one-time thing. There's no Adam Thielen. He's out now. And I think it's a spot for Lou Anarumo to get right maybe against Andy Dalton a little bit. Maybe it goes that way. Even if not, I think the Bengals score enough to get over the number here. Joe Burrow, 14-7-1 ATS after a loss, including 79% on the road there. So we like this spot for him. I know he's 0-3, but he did cover in that spot in Kansas City and probably should have got the win there. So give me the Bengals -4, just an overreaction here.
Over to the land of CFB, and here's how the 2-game slate is shaping up for Friday Night Football. The Miami Hurricanes remain red hot on the field and enter as 17.5-point favorites over Virginia Tech, who has really struggled early on against Power 5 competition. The public has been all over the U, garnering 66% of the bets, but just 46% of the handle. That's interesting to note. Rutgers is also the popular home favorite against Washington, with 58% of the bets coming in on the Scarlet Knights. The over is also generating just over half the handle as well, as we welcome in Mike Calabrese to talk more about Friday Night Football and the week ahead. Mike, let's talk about this Virginia Tech-Miami game, because I think it's the most interesting of the entire night. Well, there's only 2 games, but I think it's the most interesting of the 2, right? We looked at this game maybe a few weeks ago, and Virginia Tech's floating around a touchdown underdog. Now, all of a sudden, they lose to Rutgers. They haven't looked great early on. Miami's looked phenomenal. This line has ballooned all the way up to 17.5. It feels like a bit of an inflation, an overinflation. Do you agree with me, or are you all in on the Canes?
No, give me the points with the Hokies. I'm going to buy the dip on Virginia Tech. This is one of the most experienced teams in the entire country. And I think in the portal era, that really means something when you get off to a rough start, because when you bring in mercenaries and you bring in all these transfers, it's easy to lose a team very quickly, particularly if your season is starting to go in the tank. This is a team that had dark horse ACC aspirations to make the college football playoff. Speaking of the college football playoff, with a 12-team field, now the conference play is starting. It's a brand new season for them. It's a clean slate. In the 4-team field, they would already be out of the running to make it to the postseason and a chance to play for the national championship. But with a 12-team field, they win here, all of a sudden they could wake up tomorrow morning in first place in the ACC. So I think there's real opportunity from a salesman perspective to pitch this to the kids in the Virginia Tech locker room. And you talked about the Miami Hurricanes getting off to a hot start. I think they deserve the flowers that they're getting, but this is a little bit rich, in my opinion, when you consider who they played. They played a lifeless Florida team that could put no pressure on Cam Ward. Then they played FCS Florida A&M. They played Ball State, that's barreling towards a fourth straight losing season. And then last week against South Florida, the Bulls have a bottom 15 defense in all of FBS football. So I think it's going to be a bit of a culture shock in terms of the defensive quality that Cam Ward and this Miami offense is going to face tonight.
I think it's really interesting that you say, that transfers versus having the veteran experience and guys that have been in a program that they won't give up on a season. Because you see what's happening with Florida State. It looks like that team is just completely spiraling, completely given up. They're already onto their professional endeavors, most likely the next step of their career. But Virginia Tech, it seems like they might still have some fight left. I mean, they came back late against Rutgers and then one 60-plus yard reception later, and all of a sudden Rutgers ended up pulling away again. But it's a very interesting to note, and does feel like, the line has gotten a bit too high to get up of over 17 in general. Feels a bit rich, so I'm definitely with you on this one. And I mentioned Virginia Tech playing Rutgers. Rutgers also playing tonight against Washington at home, looking to remain undefeated here. They're slight favorites, but you in particular here, you don't have a side or total, but you like a player prop in this one.
Washington has basically feasted on teams that had to abandon the run in the second half. They played Weber State, they played Eastern Michigan, they played Northwestern, clearly not killers on the offensive side of the ball. And once they fell behind, they stopped running. So the Huskies' defensive numbers when it comes to stopping the run look really good. But I think that's kind of belying the fact that they're more or less a mediocre, maybe a slightly above average run defense up against a Rutgers team, that chop and wood mentality from Greg Schiano. They are going to run the ball. They are top 5 in terms of rush percentage and top 10 in terms of time of possession. So they want to play keep away. They want to put it in Kyle Monungai's hands. And what's really interesting when you get deep into the numbers, when you look at teams that run into 7-man boxes or more loaded boxes to stop the run, they are top 10 and top 15 respectively in inside and outside zone runs. What does that mean? It means that when teams want to stop Rutgers from running the football, they can't. It's just in a lot of cases, it's a matter of let's just put more manpower up there. We'll suffocate them. Somehow Rutgers is moving people in a phone booth and creating lanes for their running game. So I like over 101.5 for Monungai here to go over his rushing prop.
Yeah, it feels like Monungai, I mean, he's been incredible to start the season. He's a very, NFL level running back. You look at what he's done, 84 against Virginia Tech, but then he put up 200 the week prior, and in the debut against Howard also in the high 100. So definitely a guy that in particular Rutgers goes as he does. Ultimately they do. So to keep it close, to have a chance at winning, and this game being a pick'em, it feels like Monungai is going to be the guy to help them get through. But let's move on to Saturday as well. Before I get to Saturday, you won, by the way. Congratulations on the over that you hopped on earlier in the week to give out in a Service Academy game. Then we're going to Saturday, another Service Academy game. We got the undefeated Navy midshipmen going to UAB, right around 3.5-point favorites. You're not targeting an over in this one like you did yesterday night, but you are targeting a Service Academy to have some success.
The eyes of the college football world are trained on the state of Alabama. So let's stay in the Yellowhammer State, but fade a team here in the Magic City of Birmingham. I'll take Navy laying the points for one key reason. This offense, with Drew Cronick as their offensive coordinator, is one of the most explosive in the entire country. They're averaging 3 plays per game from scrimmage where they go for 40 plus. That's tops in the entire country. Generally, you bleed out against a Service Academy team where they beat you 3, 4, 5 yards at a time, put together those long drives. Now, all of a sudden, they have haymakers at their disposal, and their quarterback, Blake Horvath, is leading the entire country in QBR. That's right. This is a throwback to the Roger Staubach days, the Heisman Trophy winner from 1963. Navy can throw the football, and the issue here is that UAB already was not good against stopping the run. So they have to commit those extra hats in the box to have any chance to slow down the Navy run game. But then when you listen to Trent Dilfer, and he can be very honest in his assessment of his own team, he knows that they struggle. It's their Achilles heel to stop the run. But the bigger issue in his eyes is how fast this Navy team is. He said they had great, not good, great team speed. So when they get to the second and third level with their receivers and their running backs and wide receivers, they're popping these big plays. So this is not a regular handicap for a Service Academy team, having just dropped 566 yards on Memphis, torpedoing their college football playoff hopes. this Navy team is for real. And last year, one final cherry on top of this handicap, PJ Volker, the defensive coordinator for Navy, absolutely put this UAB offense in a box. He tied up the passing game, 206 yards, 2 picks for Jacob Zeno. The only game the entire year that UAB did not score 20 or more points.
Wow, that's something that I didn't even remember, but that's very true. And you mentioned the yards, 56 points on Memphis. Like, this is not a Service Academy team that's going to struggle to put up yards. And you mentioned it's such a pain to go up against service academies in general, like having to deal with the option. For a team to be able to throw the football like Navy now can, it feels like trouble is brewing for UAB. And, you know, how much off a bye? I guess I can ask you, they're coming off a bye, UAB, but like how much do you think a bye can really get you prepared for an option in general?
Well, what I think is interesting is that in a standard year where you know you're going up against a triple option offense that may have a few small tweaks, not only do you have the sample size of the first 3 games, but you have really the last couple years of tape to look at. But with Drew Cronick coming in, he's doing all these different things with the wing T elements in this offense, and he hasn't even shown all of them.
Yeah.
So I really do think that UAB's behind the 8 ball defensively, and the team speed element is going to be the most shocking thing that's going to show up. When you look at them on film, they look more like a power 4 team that can hit explosive plays as opposed to like a cute G5 story that's dunking their way down the field like UAB does on offense.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Navy looks absolutely incredible, and I don't know why you would want to get in the way of what has been just an absolute train destruction right now. But Mike Calabrese, you're on tomorrow, a reminder at 10:30 a.m. Eastern on the BBOC live show over on the BBOC YouTube channel, breaking down the rest of this week's game. But enjoy the games tonight, the 2-game slate. Good luck, and I'll talk to you again next week.
Appreciate it. Thanks a lot, Charlie.
And just a reminder that any pick we give out here on the show, like the ones you just heard from Mike Calabrese, you can easily reference by following us in the award-winning Action Network app under the handle at @green.daily. We keep track so you don't have to. And that's going to be all from me on this Friday. A nice and easy football-only show over at green.daily. Appreciate you guys hopping on. Enjoy the Friday night lights. You know, have some fun today. Get ready for this weekend. A reminder, BBOC, 10:30 a.m. Eastern. Convince Me, Power Hour with the Touchdown Show. Also on Sunday morning. I'll be back here Monday at 3 Eastern to take you through Monday Night Football's doubleheader. We'll see you then.